Friday night, for the most part, was a positive step forward for us, and in the growth of what we're trying to do and continuing to get better. I think we definitely showed we can compete on the road, and that was something that we needed to feel really good about, and felt good about it. Had the lead going into the end. I thought it should have been a larger lead than it was, but it nonetheless had the lead, and we didn't come off the beam, but we didn't do our best beam, and we've got to be able to close meets out like when we get in those opportunities. But overall, I thought our team responded well to the environment, responded well to some scores that were in the first rotation, and really attacked the meet as a whole and did a great job of executing. That doesn't mean we don't have things to correct, but I thought, most nights that performance would have been enough to win.
It does kind of make your sport unique. Like, it feels like you lost in a buzzer beater Friday or something.
Yeah.
Yet you don't drop in the rankings, and your score is still pretty high, right?
Yeah.
That's
It was an extremely high score. I think it may be the highest road score that we've had in conference in a long, long time here. Alyssa could check that for me, but no, that really, as I told y'all last week, we talk about scores all the time, and scores do determine where we are in the pecking order for postseason, but for me, it's really just about the eyeball test for me about what our team did in terms of performance, and it was it was worthy of the score that it got. Probably maybe a little more, if I'm being honest. But so that's the thing, is that we showed that in a different environment on different equipment that we can perform at the same level we did here. We talked to him last week about not having to depend on the energy that we get in the PMAC, and being able to create our own energy regardless of where we are. And it's something that we've addressed in various ways, but I was pretty direct with them last week, and I thought they did a great job of kind of answering the call on that. We've still got plenty of room to improve, but overall I'm very pleased. And yeah, it was enough to keep us where we are, and we definitely want to stay up there near the top. It'd be nice to be a 1 seed going into the postseason if we can continue to do that. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But it doesn't. It just more from a perception standpoint and our own confidence, that would be a good thing for us to be able to try to do.
There's still a chance your team can take home the SEC regular season title with Kentucky beating Florida and a win over Alabama. Just, does that play into anything this week or mindsets this week?
No, I mean the mindset for us is to come in here and have a great home performance and beat Alabama, and that's really what it is. The regular season championship is. It's a good thing in that it gives us something that our sport doesn't naturally give us, and that is some worth to wins and losses, because otherwise there's not a whole lot. But on the other side of that, with home court advantage being what it seems to be in our sport at an all-time high, I'm not sure that it's always the best indicator. And certainly, if we had done, here's the thing about that: if we had done what we needed to do at Missouri, we wouldn't even had to worry about it. So those things have a way of taking care of themselves. I can't. I didn't even know that until I got on the bus that Kentucky and Arkansas were even meeting, and that could potentially affect. That's for other people to figure out. The job at hand is what we've got to stay focused on, and then all that stuff will take care of itself one way or the other.
You mentioned some small things you need to improve on. What are some of those tangible
It's the
things?
same stuff, man. We're not landing bar dismounts. We're not. We landed better on vault. I thought direction was a lot better on vault. We didn't have the kind of off-center landings that we had been seeing. that you see a lot with Yurchenko 1.5s for a lot of teams. I'm not sure the judges always take it. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. The mistakes on beam were obvious. I thought that had to do with timidity. We were only up by a tenth or whatever it was, and I thought we got tight. We didn't come off the beam, but we were trying to be perfect. And when you get in that mindset, it's a bad place to be. You've got to stay loose and stay aggressive with what you're doing. So I thought there was a little bit of tentative, trying and fighting internally with trying to be perfect on that last event. But really, it comes down to, on bars, I guess Haley landed and Jeff landed, albeit in a deep squat. But the other four just, we were hopping around, and we were doing that in warm-ups. And so you kept having to take extra turns in warm-ups on dismounts, and it sort of kind of played out the way that it looked like it was going to. So we just got to keep, we see flashes of it. They stick dismounts every day in the gym. So it's gonna carry over. But those are sort of the final touches, because those bar sets were good. Internal, the meat and potatoes of those routines were really good. The handstands were vertical. The amplitude was enormous on our releases. Execution was good. You didn't see knees. You didn't see feet. You didn't see things that can get you in trouble in terms of that. It really, for us, it just came down to whether we landed or not. And so we've got to improve there, and that'll be the main thing. It's hard though, because if you hyper focus on that and get into a kind of a result oriented mindset, the same thing that happened on beam where we got tight can happen to you, on bars. You got to stay aggressive, and you got to focus on the things that cause the result that you are looking for, not the result itself.
Leah's on back-to-back 10s on floor. Just have you seen anything different from her in practice, or is it she just kind of hitting her stride right now?
I think Aaliyah's probably hitting her stride a little bit. There's been a lot on that kid this year with, all this conversation about the Olympic Games, and she, the gymnast that she was for us last year, and then sometimes you come in to the next year even without the extra of going to the Olympics or whatever. And, she hasn't expressed any of this, but I've seen it enough to know when kids are trying to replicate something or try to one-up themselves or be better than they were the previous year or whatever the case may be. Some people call it a sophomore slump. Well, this is her junior year, but, you see that in other sports where, people make a big splash early and then they begin to press. I think whether she would express that or not, I don't know. But I think early in the year that's what it looked like to me as a coach, and I think she's just getting comfortable and confident again, and trying to, just settle down a little bit.
I ran into Dee Dee in my neighborhood before the meet the other day, and we got to talking about, we mentioned Amari Drayton, and she said she's a monster talent.
Yeah.
What do you see from her ability? Obviously, Connor, because of some of the things she's accomplished, has probably gotten a few more accolades and attention. But what do you see from her? And obviously, eventually, Kaya and Haley are going to leave.
Yeah.
Do you ever think of these could be your next two hammers, or you don't like to think about that?
I know that I think I called Kaya and Haley the hammers at the back one time, and that seems to have stuck. But it's a different situation. Connor has the pre-collegiate accolades, but Amari was also a United States Elite national team member and went to Olympic trials, and and has done amazing things as well. I do think Dee Dee's assessment of Amari is true. She is a monster talent and is physically as gifted as anybody. Especially, she's very comfortable on the leg events where her power can show. She's got to grow in her confidence on the other two that are a little more the intricate. She's very good. When some of her bar routines that she'll show in the gym could go 9.9 plus any day. But she's got to be confident and consistent when the expectation's there, whether that's an inner squad or getting her into a competition. So we're just trying to let her grow in terms of terms of that, and we're fortunate that this year we don't have to. Kaya and Haley were freshmen; they were plugged right into the all-around right out of the gate, and that was just about personnel. This year we have the personnel that we don't have to push these freshmen to do more than maybe they're ready to do, and you run the risk with when they're young. If you put them out there too soon and they're not successful, you could ruin their confidence, and that's harder to climb out of than just bringing them along a lot more slowly. But Amari's extremely talented. She's a wonderful kid to be around. She has such a genuine personality, one of the most sincere laughs you'll ever hear, a big kind of from the gut kind of laugh that makes everybody smile, and just a genuinely great sense of humor, a good friend, good teammate. And so I think over time, I wouldn't directly compare either one of them to Haley or Kaya, but I think from an impact standpoint, they could be similar, yes.
Connor got back to doing 3 events the other night, because I know she did 1 2 weeks ago. Just how's she feeling after that?
Physically, she feels really good right now. At least the report I got this morning is that there's no ill effects from the meet, and that's a positive. We have backed off on vault. We were trying to get her ready on vault, and maybe the vault had irritated her back a little bit, which is why we shut her down, for Auburn, except for the one event. So I think Connor's in a better place physically than she has been for the last several weeks, and knock on wood, we take it a day at a time, but I feel pretty good about it right now.
Now that we're getting a ways into the season, how is your staff making sure that the athletes are putting their mental and physical health first?
Wait, say that again?
Now that we're getting into the season, how is your staff making sure that the athletes put their physical and mental health first rather than just focusing on those perfect scores?
Yeah. That's a good question, and it's something that kind of goes into our philosophy. And I think Dr. Lakeitha Poole, who's here on our staff, is she's head of our mental health services, and she meets with our staff weekly every Monday morning. It's just part of our whole staff meeting. Our whole philosophy is very holistic in terms of how we do that. I check up. If I see something going on, I'll let her know in that meeting. Hey, if you haven't talked to so-and-so in a while, make sure you check in with them. And it's from a philosophical standpoint, we work very hard to make sure they know that they're not a score to us, that the first and foremost is about who they are as a person. And y'all have heard me say it in this room before. I want to win every meet. I want to win every single championship, but I do not want to do it at the expense of the experience that they have and the relationships that they have while they're here, both with us and with their teammates. So it's something that we prioritize. Without getting too deep in the weeds, it's a balanced conversation about everything as it comes along, and Dr. Poole is a tremendous part. She meets with them weekly as a group. She meets with them individually, and they know that we encourage them to utilize her as a resource as well as any others that we have.
Two regular questions you get are, of course, what's it like going against Georgia this year, and then which you've already played them, but in QS it kicked in this week, and I finally understand it a little bit after all these years of covering gymnastics. I finally understand how to figure it out. Is it here to stay? Is it something that y'all ever discuss as coaches?
Oh yeah.
You want every score to count. I think you've said. Right?
Yeah.
And so why do you have it, and is it going to anywhere?
Scott, I have proposed myself many times at our convention. I haven't recently because I kind of gave up. That we just go straight average. My own personal feelings about everything we do is that we should make ourselves as understandable to the layperson as possible. That's why we haven't gone to the open-ended scoring like you see at the elite or Olympic level, where kids are scoring 13s, 14s, 15s. People don't understand that. People know what a home run is, they know what a touchdown is, they know what a perfect 10 is. And if we're attracting fan base, the fan base is growing like it is for our sport, we need to be as understandable as possible. It's not possible for everyone to understand it right away, but if we can be as understandable as possible. the argument against going straight average, counting everything, is that occasionally there have been teams that maybe they had a flu bug run through their team and they had to forfeit a meet, or they had things come along, and then what? Do they count a 0 in their average? So I think there's caveats that could be put into place where we could get closer to straight average. But for whatever reason, there's resistance to it. It really doesn't change a whole lot. I mean, there's schools that jump. When we go to RQS, you'll see some that jump up, some that jump down, and then it flattens back out. But when you look at the end result at the end of every season, there's very little movement in terms of what it would have been if you had gone straight average versus the NQS formula. I understand all the concerns about it. I just am not a proponent of a sport counting 50% of what it does. Like I don't know. It just sort of flies in the face of competition to me. Even though we're very subjective as it is, to me, the larger sample size, the more accurate you get. If it were me, but it's not me, and I'm not on a soapbox about it anymore. I was for a long time, but I've decided there's other fish to fry. So I haven't really gone after that one in a while. But if it were me, I would want to go straight average. Maybe you drop the high and the low, or maybe you drop the low, or where they don't. People want you to drop the high because of all the talk of what happens at home scoring, and we see that's true. That you do see environments affect scoring sometimes, but everybody has that at some level. Correct. And at the end of the day, most of the time the right team is winning, regardless of whether the score is what it should have been or not. Most of the time. It's a complicated argument. And when we have those conversations at our convention, they can get very emotionally charged. So it's just not something that I've really put a lot of energy into of late. I think the fans that follow our sport, ardently, they kind of get the NQS now. Like it used to be called RQS, but it's the same thing because we don't call it regionals anymore. It's the tournament. But, it's your top 6 scores, 3 of which minimum must be away, and then you throw out the high and average the other 5. And it usually, most people's NQS, is higher than their average, right? Ours went up this week because we dropped a 197.15 from the Utah meet. So we don't have that in our formula. Instead, it got replaced with a 197.95. Big difference, right? So it affected our number by 0.2 or so. Absolutely. And that part's good, but there are some teams whose NQS is actually a skosh lower than their average. They're anomalies, but they're there. It is subjective, but I would say this. Every sport has a degree of subjectivity. Do you think the Saints think that that play was subjective? When you think balls and strikes are subjective in college baseball. Yes, it's more obvious because you have the actual scores being awarded by the officials, right? In our sport. But in certain, subjectivity is subjectivity, and you see it in basketball with the basketball officiating. You see all sorts of things. So, I don't want to get too far off the beaten path. If we over accentuate the subjectivity, then it takes away the credibility of what these kids do and at the level they do it. So, subjectivity is definitely there, and it's tough. Our sport is predicated on the eye of the beholder, but we do have things in place that are supposed to be regulated. I'm not sure that all the officials do it as well as some, but I don't question their integrity about it. I think all of them are trying to do a good job. All right, on to the next one.
Oh, what was it like going back to compete at Florida, and were there any nerves involved at all, or you wanted to do well? And second of all, Jay told me after the meet that Amari is hilarious. Can you tell me how she is hilarious?
Returning to the Odom was, I feel like it's very hard to put it into words, like the exact emotions I was feeling. It was a very strange experience to go back as a visitor and to kind of see like the behind the scenes of like, the visitor locker room and starting on bar as opposed to vault. But it was very bittersweet and honestly really cool just to compete there one last time. Because, obviously, as you guys know, I was injured last year and didn't get to have, like, my senior night and everything in the Odom. And so it was really cool being able to compete in that environment again, but this time as a Tiger. And it was really cool just being able to do that with all my girls by my side and just having their support. They were reiterating, and Jay was reiterating their support to me, the whole week, and making sure that they knew that I was there, that they were there for me if I needed anything with all the emotions coming up going back. But yeah, it was really cool. And Amari is literally not just one of the funniest people I know, but one of the sweetest, most down-to-earth humans. But sometimes we'll just lock eyes in the circle and literally just looking, just start dying out laughing. And she's just one of those people that as soon as she walks into the room, that you're gonna have a good time or be laughing at something going on. It's the truth, Mar.
Hi, Amari. I have a question for you. Where did your phrase "get there" come from? You can kind of talk about that a little bit.
So it actually started as a joke, and I would just always, if the door was open and I'm with my roommates, I would just be like, oh, get there, hurry up and get there. And, it was just a joke. But then now we, looked into it, and, just deeper meaning started coming into it, and, people just started making it into their own way and, how they would get there gymnastics-wise and, mentally-wise. So that's how it started.
Savannah, this is your 6th year
Yes.
of college. What keeps you going? Has there been a point where, am I sure I want to keep doing this or not? Or there's no doubt at all that I'm going to do this for as long as I can do it?
There was no doubt at all. I would take 15 years in the NCAA if I could, and if my body would allow me to do that. My body's giving out on me as I'm 23, still doing college gymnastics. But no, it was just no question in mind that I wanted to keep going. As soon as the opportunity for a COVID year came to be, I was oh, no doubt I'm taking that. I love this sport and I would do anything to stay in it. And so as soon as the opportunity again for a 6th year came about, I was no doubt, I definitely want to stay in the sport and keep riding it out and keep trying to accomplish the goals that I set out for myself.
It just used to be unusual for an athlete to go up against a former school. Now it's kind of become the norm, no matter the sport, right?
Right.
You kind of seeing that throughout athletics?
Yes, definitely. I feel especially with COVID years, it's definitely become more normalized for athletes to enter the transfer portal. And so coming to LSU for my 6th year was definitely a big change for me, coming to another big-time SEC school. Not only that, but coming to arguably our biggest rival in the SEC. But I knew that I wanted to have a different experience for my 6th year and go somewhere where I felt that I could really continue to grow, not only as an athlete, but a person. And making that choice to come to LSU was definitely the greatest decision I could have made.
In gymnastics, they're not supposed to yell at you like in football and
Right.
basketball and stuff. But did you hear some stuff in the stands? Did they remember you? And
Oh yeah, they
everything?
definitely remembered me. But it was all positive. As soon as they, announced my name for the entries or introductions, the whole crowd erupted in cheers, and there was a bunch of little girls that came up in Gator gear afterwards and was still hugging me and saying that I was still an inspiration, and so it was super cool to see the support carry over, even though I was at the rival school.
You got a bigger crowd reaction than Liv did.
This is a question for both of you. Coming off your best road score of the season, where do you think this team is at with SEC championships right around the corner?
Do you want to take it first? Or you go first? Okay. I think that we're just continuously building more and more confidence as the meets go by. And it really just shows in our performance too. Not only I mean, we try not to base our performance and dictate it off of the scores, but the scores do reflect that. And it really just reflects our work that we've been putting in all fall and all season long. And it really shows in like practices too. We're just becoming more and more consistent and fine tuning those small details that are really going to make the difference out in the end when postseason does come around.
Going into like what Sav said, I definitely think that we're like building off of every meet, and our consistency is getting way better. And I honestly think that our energy we already have a lot of energy, but our energy is ramping up as more and more meets go by. So I just think that that really goes into how we're going to do at SECs.
For both the gymnasts, a freshman and a sixth-year senior, you guys are still in contention for the SEC regular season titles. Savannah, that's something y'all won every year at Florida. You can still get a piece of it if you win, and if Florida loses at Kentucky. What does that mean to you guys? I mean, obviously the SEC meet in New Orleans is really important, and of course NCAAs, but it is a championship to try to win. So what does it mean? Is it anything y'all are thinking about, or just not thinking about it at all and trying to have the best score against Alabama?
Honestly, I feel like it's something that's kind of in the back of our minds, at least for me, but not something that I'm hyper focused on, you know? It's something that is a very cool accomplishment just to show a sense of consistency over the whole regular season. But it doesn't change the approach to how we're going to go into the meet on Friday. You know, it's just another opportunity to build confidence and to grow in our consistency. And, you know, if we keep the same approach and do what we know how to do, then the results will come for themselves.
I agree. Copy paste.
Amari, what is, this is a kind of I'm seeking an answer to that Connor gave when she was up here earlier this year. Before this year, what was the shortest amount of time that you ever competed in big meets, before, and how have you dealt with the week in, week out grind, the toll it takes on you? I mean, you want to be doing this, but it does take a physical toll. How have you dealt with this as a freshman?
So before I got here, like the big meets that I did compete at, they were like once every 3 months. So it was definitely a big adjustment coming to college and like competing every weekend, but I always get treatment. I'm always in the training room and like maintaining my maintenance on my body so that it's not as hard on me and like continues to stay the same as it were if I competed once every three months.
We'll wrap up with Mar. Mar, you're sitting next to a 6-year senior. Just tell us how, I know you call him Grammy, but just tell us, like, you're a freshman and you're sitting next to a 6-year senior. Tell us how you learned from the veterans like her.
So Sav is a really big inspiration, as well as all of the other seniors, and I just look up to them. They go into the gym every day and they know what they want to get done and they know what they want to work on. So I just like look up to them and like I want to be like them when I become 5th, 6th, 4th year senior.